Well, it is the witching hour, right, Dan? Let's go ahead and get started. We'll have a few more people joining us, I'm sure, as we're going along. But tonight's live review session is here for you. I mean, we're going to be talking a little bit about contracts, and we have some questions we're going to go over in regards to contracts to kind of give you a feel for what you're going to be experiencing on the exam. But the floor is open when we open for questions. I mean, it doesn't have to be about contracts. It can be about anything. And I'm here to try to be your answer man. And if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. Heck, I haven't got a clue. But as far as getting you through the test, I'm your guy. Okay, I'm going to help you. Now, I mentioned this last time we were together, but this is something you guys all need to get and download. And that is called the General Exam Content Outline for Salespersons and Brokers. And this is a multi-page document that comes from Pearson VUE. And the real value of this document is it gives you the weighting of the topics as they appear on the exam, because you're going to have a number of questions on the national exam. You're going to have 80 questions, but how many of those are from a particular topic? Well, tonight we're going to be talking about contracts, and here on this particular document, it says that the contracts and agency, and for the sales exam, there's 16 questions on contracts and agency, okay? But we're gonna just be talking about contracts, so maybe there's 8, I don't know. All right, so let's get going. First of all, you understand that if you're gonna have a contract, they have some essential elements. And the essential elements are really mainly four essential elements, but for real estate contracts, because of a uniform statute called the Statute of Frauds that most states have adopted, if not all states, there is a fifth one. And that fifth one is it must be in writing. Because the Statute of Frauds is not a law that was put into effect to try to avoid or prevent fraud. It's a law that says that there's certain things that are so important that they must be in writing. And then hopefully that'll clear up issues between people. So that's the fifth one. Now, the first 4 are mutual agreement. You have to have a meeting of the minds. And then and after that, second one is consideration. And there must be valuable consideration given from both parties. Now, the promise to buy and the promise to sell can be considered valuable consideration just in and of itself. But consideration can be further defined as valuable consideration and good consideration. Valuable consideration has a dollar sign. You can count it. And a good consideration is love and affection and loyalty and that type of thing. It's a little bit harder to put a financial value on. The third essential elements for contracts, my friends, is capacity. And in Utah, you have to be 18 in order to enter into a contract. That's the age of majority here for contracting. So an 18-year-old can actually enter into a contract. Anyone lower than that would be a minor. Now, sometimes you have older people or other people that are disabled in one way or another, and so they have been adjudicated not to be able to enter into contracts, or they're adjudicated that they don't have capacity. And then, of course, they'll have someone designated for them by the court that can actually sign for them. And then the last essential element is a lawful or legal purpose. The old mafia term of putting out a hit or a contract on someone, really, that's illegal. You can't go killing people, so that would not be an enforceable contract at all. So with those in mind, what I'd like to do now is to kind of go to our questions, and let's kind of work through these together and talk about some of the tricks that these devious exam writers are going to play on you, okay? Okay, if a real estate purchase contract is signed by both parties, but the buyer finds that the contract does not accurately represent the property, the contract is what? Executed, automatically voided, unilateral, or voidable by the buyer, okay? Executed means it was put up against the wall and shot. It's already over with. So obviously that's not the one that's going to work here, because this is a contract just been entered into, and then the buyer finds out that, my gosh, this is not exactly what they said it was. Maybe it's smaller, maybe it's bigger, maybe it's older, maybe it has other problems with it, but it wasn't accurately represented. And so does that mean it's automatically voided? What do you think, gang? Is there some contract fairy out there that's going to come and say automatically, okay, that was wrong, it's automatically voided? I don't think so. That's not too challenging on that one. Unilateral. Well, there's unilateral and there's bilateral. Uni means one and bi means two. Unicycle and a bicycle. Okay. I guess they both have one seat, but they have one wheel and two wheels. That's why it's uni and bi. All right. So unilateral means the very best example of a unilateral contract that you'll ever see on the exam, guys, is an option agreement. Why? Because there's only a promise made one way. On a buy-sell agreement, like a purchase contract, the promises are made both ways. You know, the seller promises to sell, buyer promises to buy. But in an option, the seller promises to sell, but does the buyer promise to buy, or does he have or her have an option to buy or not buy? And that's why that's always on the exam. The very best example of a unilateral contract is an option agreement. So that leaves us with only one, voidable by the buyer. What happens when you have, and that's the correct answer, by the way, D is correct. So what happens if you have a contract that was entered into, and there was, in this case, really there wasn't mutual agreement. I mean, the seller was promising to sell something, but it was either misrepresented, either intentionally or not intentionally, but who is harmed in this situation? The seller or the buyer? I'm going to sit here and wait until someone says something. That's right. You didn't say anything, but I'll jump in anyway. It was the buyer. So who can void the contract? The harmed party, the buyer. Okay. Another example of this would be a situation where you have an adult who enters into a contract with a minor. Now, some minors mature quickly, and they're like 17 years old, maybe going on 18, but not quite there yet. They're driving around on a new Mercedes. That's because they have a YouTube channel that is extremely popular. Maybe she's been talking about makeup and whatnot. I don't know, but she has millions of followers, and she decides she wants to buy a condo in downtown Salt Lake. She drives up at her brand new Mercedes, and you're the agent, and you're looking, how old is she? Gosh, she's got to be 25 or 26. I guess she inherited it. Either that or, but anyway, she has lots of money. She can pay cash for the condo. So she enters in a contract to buy the condo. But wait a minute, she lacks capacity. She's not 18 yet. So now we have a contract that, is it valid? No, because there was one of the essential elements that was not completely there, the element of capacity, right? In this one, the one we're looking at first here, which essential element of that? Well, mutual agreement, probably, right? But in this one, where it's a 17-year-old that looks like 25 and driving a new Mercedes, she doesn't have capacity, okay? Now, so who's the harmed party? The buyer or the seller? Which one lacked capacity? Because the seller knew what they were doing and had capacity, but the 17-year-old didn't. So the contract then is not valid, it's voidable, like this one was. And it's voidable because there was a lack of capacity by the 17-year-old driving the new Mercedes. Okay, so the point is, who can void out that contract in that example? Obviously, it's the minor. And she could still go ahead and buy the property. I mean, she's got the cash. She'll just wire it in. Everything will close. The only problem is that unless she appoints someone as an administrator or whatnot in the deed that gives her the title of the property, she's not going to be able to do anything with that property until she's 18, which is only like 5 months away anyway. What does she care? Okay, all right, enough on that. Okay, the next one. This one's kind of cool. I like this question, because it has kind of like two dimensions to it. The first dimension is it talks right off the bat, starts talking about lessor and lessees, okay? Now, you've got to know your ors and es for the test, my friends. And so that could be a challenge for some of you, although you're not going to mess up on lessor or lessee anymore after tonight. But which one of these is the landlord and which one of these is the tenant, okay? Tenant wants to move in. What do they want to get from the landlord? They want the right of possession. They want the keys, right? Does that make sense? So who's the only person that can give that tenant the right of possession? Could the tenant just move in? You know, the door was unlocked, or they picked the lock and they moved in, and after a month or so, they called the landlord and said, hey, well, I've been living here about 2 months now, and maybe we ought to pay you some rent. What do you think? No, that's not right. So the only person that can give possession is the owner. That's the who? That's the landlord, right? So the ORs are the givors. The ORs are the givors, okay? So if the tenant wants the keys, but who can give the tenant the keys? The landlord or the lessor. The tenant is the lessee. The tenant is the receiver. The EEs are the receivers. So who's the grantor on a deed? The seller. And who's the grantee on a deed? The receiver, okay? And all the ORs and Es work like that. Who is the optionor? And who's the optionee? Who can give an option on their property? I mean, could someone call you up and say, hey, a month ago, I took out an option on your property. I hope that's okay. No, who can grant an option on your property? You could. So you would have to be, the owner would have to be the optionor, and the potential buyer would be the optionee. Now, this works great on all cases. The givers are the ORs and the EEs are the receivers, except for one, and really, it still works on that one, but you got to think it through. And that's on mortgagee, mortgagor in a loan, okay? Because you think you go to the bank to get the loan, but really you go to the bank and you give them the right to lien your property. You know, the bank can't call you and say, hey, this is Rick with Happy Valley Bank, and just want you to know, Megan, that we took a loan out on your house a couple days ago, and you'll love the interest rate. It's only 18%, and come down and get the money anytime you want. And you know, we're really looking forward to having you as a customer here at the bank. I don't think so. Who can hypothecate your property? Hypothecate, of course, means to give it up as collateral. The only person that can hypothecate your property is you. So you think you go to the bank to get a loan, but actually you give them the right to lien your property. So you are the mortgagor, and the bank is the what? Mortgagee. Interesting. Now on a deed of trust, we have 3 players, okay? We have a beneficiary who's a bank, and then we have a trustor and a trustee, okay? And a trustee is the third independent party that's kind of holding the bet. And a trustor, once again, would be like the mortgagor. It'd be you, the owner of the property. So in this case, lessor's got to be who? Landlord. Lessee's got to be who? Tenant. So let's change that out. If a landlord and a tenant come to terms on a lease for an apartment, but after the agreement signs, it's revealed that the lessee, that's the tenant, is only 16 years old, what's true? Well, it's similar to that young lady with the Mercedes, right? Same thing. Lessee can void the contract, maybe. Let's hang on to that one. Lessor can void the contract. No, the lessor had capacity. The contract is automatically voided. No contract voidance ferry anywhere. And the contract is activated. Boy, that's just a giveaway, stupid answer, right? So the correct answer to this one obviously is A. I hope you got that. Many questions will have, yes, question.
Yeah, just reminding everyone that this is open for questions. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, or if you want to type any questions in the chat, we're happy to answer anything that you have as it comes up. So Rick has a lot of great information, but let's not let him take the whole spotlight. If you have questions, let's answer them as they come up.
You bet. You bet. All right, we're going on now to the next one now, which is number 3. And number 3 says, according to the Statute of Frauds, now that Statute of Frauds is that uniform statute I was talking about earlier. It's very similar from one state to another, which, you know, we have a lot of uniform statutes, which is probably a good thing because, you know, we do a lot of interstate commerce. You know, I mean, people that live in California own a lot of Utah real estate. So if the laws are kind of similar from one state to another, not entirely similar, but mostly similar, that's a good thing. So according to the Statute of Frauds, a real estate sale contract must be A, encumbered, which means like, what, there's a loan on it or something? That doesn't sound too good. Chattel, what's chattel? Chattel is personal property. Well, it is a piece of paper, maybe. I don't know. A lien? Oh, that's kind of like A, isn't it? It's encumbering something. Now, A, encumbered could mean, it could be a non-financial encumbrance, like, you know, CC&Rs, or maybe an easement against a property, but those three don't sound very good. And D, signed by both parties. And of course, that is the correct answer, my friends. D, signed by both parties. Okay, questions on that? This is your chance to participate. Okay, I got more to talk about. All right, here we go. Number 4. An agreement to purchase property is an agreement between who? Agreement to purchase property. The buyer and his agent, the buyer and the seller and his agent, or the agents of the buyer and the seller. Well, a lot of agents in here, right? What do you think they're driving at here? What kind of an agreement to purchase property are they talking about? They're talking about a buyer's listing, aren't they? They're talking about a buyer that enters into a contract to purchase property. And that would be an agreement between who, guys?
The buyer and seller.
Ah. Are we talking about a buyer's agreement? Or are we talking about a contract to purchase property? You see, a contract, this is where you have to dig into some of these questions, and I intentionally misled you there. Because I want you to read each question twice, please, twice, and ask yourself, what are they really asking here? You see, that buyer's agreement, oh, I'm entering into an agreement to purchase property. No, you're entering into agreement with an agent to find something to purchase, and then have that agent help you with that purchase. An agreement to purchase property is an agreement between the buyer and the seller, which is B. Very good, very good. This is how you can flunk the test, because you're going to be in a lot of, you know, of course, we don't want you to flunk the test. We want you to pass the first time. You know, if you flunk the test, you got to pay for it again, you know, and that's like $80 or something. And, you know, that's a, you know, I'd rather you went out to dinner with your sweetheart and celebrated you passing the first time. And so would you. So you got to read the question twice before you jump down to the answers. And the similarity between this one, and this one are all that they all had agents in it. So this is the only one that stands out, and that's really what an agreement to purchase is all about. D and E are tenants in common. Tenants in common is a type of ownership, isn't it? But they both rarely spend time in the property anymore, as your lives have changed over the years. D wants an agent to list their property. Okay, so I've got a couple of people, they own a property together, and they're not there much anymore, so D wants to go ahead and sell the property. Okay. A, D can sign a listing for the property. B, no signature is needed to list the property. What do you think about that one, guys? Yeah, you're not saying anything, but your head's shaking. I appreciate that. Okay, no, that's not right. E can give verbal permission to list the property. What did the Statute of Frauds say? It all has to be in writing. So those two are obviously wrong. Hey, now we got a 50-50 chance, right? Okay, D, both D and E must sign the listing agreement. Obviously, the correct answer is what, gang? D.
D.
Yeah, you know, if I could only be there with you, you know, I mean, whispering in your ear, it'd be a snap, huh? A contract for purchase of property is not valid unless it has both, okay, offer and acceptance, signatures from the agents, title and deed, buyer and broker. Okay. Think to that, those 4 things that all valid contracts must have. The first one being mutual agreement, which we're looking at here. Mutual agreement means there was an offer and an acceptance. So obviously that's right. The agents, what do they have to do? Who said something? Somebody say something?
No, just I'm agreeing with you. Offer and acceptance is the answer.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you very much. You're exactly right.
Thank you.
Now, signatures from agents. Well, they really don't have anything to do with the deal. They're just trying to make a commission and keep this together. It's the buyer and seller to have to sign. Title and deed, that comes after, you know, when we're getting this all put together and closed up. Buyer and broker, obviously that's a throwaway. All righty, guys. You having fun yet? Well, yeah, Megan, you're telling your face. I appreciate that. You know, she's smiling and thumbs up. Very good. Okay, now, real estate sales contract has been signed by both the buyer and seller, but has not reached closing yet. What do we call that? What do we call something when it goes under contract? And there's this period of time between when it goes under contract and it actually closes. Okay. Now we're looking forward to the closing because that's when we get paid and your buyer gets what they want, your sellers get what they want, and we get what we want. I mean, life's great. Okay. But what do you call that? Is it unilateral? B? Oh, heavens, no. Is it executed? No, that means it's finished. It's put up against the wall and shot. It was executed. Fraudulent.
I believe this is executory.
Yes, it is executory. You're absolutely right. It is executory, which means that it's in process. And that's just, you know, guys, you got to know your definitions. I mean, you just have to. Okay, somebody have a question? Okay, here we go. Contract that is only binding on one party. Ooh, we talked about this a minute ago. Remember buy and uni? Such as an option is a what? There it is, unilateral. I guarantee you'll see it on the test. Not bilateral. That's a promise both ways and not executed and not activated. Yeah, all right. Activated charcoal or something? I don't know. Contract that is binding on both parties is, we gave this one away. We got to separate these a little bit more, Dan. That would be bilateral, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Here's another one. Any contract can be rescinded if the buyer backs out, the seller feels the price was too low, both parties agree, the parties are married. Okay. All right. Well, I hope they're happily married. Yeah. Dan, I heard a friend of mine tell me the other day that marriage is grand, but divorce is 250 grand. So anyway, that's as good as they get, folks. Okay, anyway, the buyer backs out. Well, the buyer backs out. My gosh, that's breaching the agreement, isn't it? That's not good. The seller feels the price is too low. You know, as soon as the sellers say, "Hey, Bob, I got my house under contract. I'm so excited. I really want to go for 865. Oh man, that was way too low." You know, right? Okay, C, both parties agree. That's it. I don't care if they're married or not. I mean, you know, what's that have to do with anything? It's both parties agree. Okay, enough on that. All right, those are some of the questions we have to look at tonight. So let's talk about some of your other issues out there, folks. See, we'll go do this. Dan, I'm having a technical issue here. Can you folks see me okay? Speak up and say something.
Yeah, I think we can all see you.
Okay. There I am. Here I am. Okay. Okay, who has other questions about contracts or any other topic? This is your time to sound off. Oh, I'm sorry, I dozed off for a minute there. Come on, guys. What is a burning issue you want to talk about? Okay, well, I'll give you one.
Larry's got his hand raised. Larry, what's your question?
I'm curious as to, can you study these in, well, can you bounce around from one topic to the next, or is it best to just go from A through Z, as it were?
Yeah, that is a good way to do things. I mean, that's the way the test is going to be presented to you. They're not going to, you know, have a series of questions on one topic and then, you know, then go to another, you know, they're all going to be blended in with all different types of questions. So that it would be good to study that way as well. I think the best way to do that is to take advantage of some of the vocabulary programs that are out there, because they'll just give you terms that are random from different disciplines or different parts of it. Yes. Did you catch that, Dan? I didn't hear the question.
hear it either. I think maybe they were talking to somebody else.
Okay. Okay. So any of the vocabulary studies that we have available to you would be a very good way to do that, where you can look at different topics all at one time. And that would be a really good use of your time. Good. You got to have this vocabulary down. Okay.
Was the
Now,
question on studying before the exam, or was the question on during the exam, taking the exam?
In preparation for the exam.
Yeah, and yeah, it was exam.
Okay.
Prep. Yeah, yeah. I on that line of exam prep and also on contracts, I want you to do something for me. And you know, all when I say that is it's for yourself, of course. I want you to get a copy of the real estate purchase contract. Okay, what we affectionately call the Rep C, and I want you to read it. I know it's 6 pages, but you need to read it and you need to be familiar with it. It is worth your time to read the agreement. If you have plenty of time before the test, I would recommend you read it now, and I'd recommend you read it again before you go into the test. And here's why. You will be given a series of questions that are based on a real estate purchase contract that is filled out. And the questions will be something like, you know, the buyer wants out of the deal, then he cancels the deal on this date. What's going to happen? You know, and they have all these different answers. The seller will, you know, either sue the buyer for specific performance, or they'll accept the earnest money as liquidated damages, or another one will be another answer, another answer, another answer. So how are you going to determine what the resolution of that cancellation might be? Well, what they're going for on that is they are going for, did he cancel before his deadline, whether it was for the appraisal or the loan approval, or whether it was for before his due diligence deadline, depending on what reason he canceled that contract for. But if he canceled it before that deadline, then he gets his money back. And the seller says, well, I just have to find another buyer. Okay. So, what's my point? My point is this. What? My point I'm trying to make on that is this, and that is that the real estate purchase contract is a big part of your test, and understanding where you get the answers, where in the form you get those answers is very, very important. That's why I want you to read through it twice, because if you've read through it twice, you'll say, well, gosh, where are all those cancellation deadlines? Oh, they're on the last page, and you'll flip to page 6 and there it is. Okay. Or they'll say, so-and-so was wondering if the in ground or above ground trampoline was included in the sale or not, you know, and well, that's on the first page where it talks about what the property is, where it is, and what's included or not included in the sale. And then questions about whether the contract is going to be canceled, or, you know, could be canceled for this reason or that reason, which contingency and why it could be canceled. That's kind of in the middle. So if you're familiar with the form and where things are in the form, then when you're taking the test, they usually bring these questions about that form up at the end. And so what happens is, you know, when you get to those state questions, which will be around 40 of them, then if you've taken quite a bit of time on the first ones, which were just like the ones we just worked, and then you get to the end of it and you're feeling the pressure of time, you could, you know, it's kind of like they give you an answer sheet. Are you with me? But you've got to be able to use the answer sheet efficiently. And so you've got to be familiar with that form. If you have never read it, guys, you're going to flunk the state exam. You know, I don't want that. I don't want you to do that, please. So get a copy of the Rep C tonight or at your first available convenient time and read through it, and then read through it again before you go take the test. Okay. Any questions about any topic?
Hey, Rick.
Yes, ma'am. Megan.
Hi. You were mentioning something about some vocabulary resources. Do you have any that you recommend, or are they available through the Institute? Where can I find those?
Dan, what do we have available for them?
So you do have a vocabulary, a glossary just right on the website under the resources tab. There's just a complete glossary list of questions and answers right there. There's also one in the PDF of the national textbook. There's a glossary at the back of that that you can look up the answers to any of the definitions.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay,
Larry's got his hand up again.
Okay, I can't see that.
Rick?
Go ahead.
Rick, could you put up that form that you first showed us at the beginning of the call?
You bet. This form is, Dan, where can they find this form in their materials?
So that, if they're on the school website, if they look under Utah classes and there's a link that says scheduling your license exam, when you go to that page, there's a link directly to the Pearson VUE book, and there's also a link directly to this content outline that Rick is showing you.
Great, thanks.
Okay. I have a Quizlet program. Are anyone here familiar with Quizlet? They use a lot of them. Yeah, okay, Megan is, a few of the others are shaking your head. Quizlet is it's used a lot in the public schools and in some of the colleges around town, and it's a program that lets you put vocabulary words in it. I have one that you're welcome to have. I'm just trying to remember the link, Dan, to get to it. It's rickroller.com / RE-vocab. Yeah, rickroller.com / RE-vocab. Yeah, RE for real estate vocab, okay? And that'll take you to the Quizlet program. When you get in it, there is a password, and the password is limitless agent. Now, if any of the information doesn't work or whatever, you're welcome to call me. My phone number is 801-556-8000. That's 801-556-8000. Operators are standing by, or I answer my own phone anyway. And I would be happy to help you get there. I think that was the link and everything to it. Does that sound familiar to you, Dan? I usually give it away every week. Anyway, been a long day. But anyway, now what you do when you get the Quizlet program, it'll take you to it, and the password is limitless agent, and that'll get you into the program. It's free. And what I'd like you to use is the flashcard part of it. And the flashcard part of it will throw up a word, and then you can hit the button and it'll give you the definition, and it'll keep track of your score and whatnot. Or you can go from definition to words. So you can go back and forth, and they're all mixed up. It's not just one topic, so you might enjoy that. But that'll help you with the words. And that's something I provide for students, and you're certainly welcome to have that. Okay, and if you have trouble getting it, just call me. I'll get you hooked up.
Rick, do those contain all of the vocabulary words from the glossary?
Not all of them. It's some of the vocabulary words are more important than others.
Okay.
There's about 330 or 40 of them in there. I
Wow.
could have pushed it to 400 or 500, but I don't want you overwhelmed with a lot of words. It's a very low probability you'll see it. So, I only put the ones on there that I think are most important for you to know, based on experience in taking the exam and other things that I've done. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Questions, guys. We've still got about, 20 minutes or so.
I was going to ask, and you might have covered this right in the beginning. I had to step out for a second.
Mm-hmm.
How long is the exam, and how many questions are typically on it?
Well, we typically say there's 80 national and 40 state, but that's not exactly true, because what Pearson VUE does is they always throw some additional questions in both categories, 3 or 4 or 5, and those additional questions are questions that they're testing. They're test questions. So you can answer anything on those questions, and it does not count for or against you. The issue I have with Pearson VUE, and have had for years, and they know this, is that they don't tell you, they don't identify those test questions. You know, they're just seeing how they play, and then if they play well, then they add them to their question database, which is 3,000 questions on a national. I think it would be better if you got to the end of your test and it said, would you help us out? Here's 10 questions. They really don't count for against you, but we're testing the test questions, and would you take these? But they don't do that. You know, they take your time to do it, and you're stressed out over them. And sometimes it's something you haven't even heard about. So if you see a question like that, just comfort yourself and say, that must be one of those test questions. And just answer C and move on. What about timing right now, Dan? What are they giving on timing on the state test right now?
They give you 4 hours to complete the entire test, but they divide it specifically 2.5 hours for national and 1.5 hours for Utah. So for the 80 national questions, you have 2.5 hours to complete those. And while you're in that section, you can jump back and forth in the questions, you can change your answers, you can mark questions to come back to them. But then when you're done with that national section, you'll have to mark that as complete, and that's where you basically turn it in. You can't do anything more with the national part, and then you only have 1 hour and 30 minutes to work on the Utah part. But then once you're in the Utah part, once again, you can go back and forth within the questions, you can mark your answers, you can mark questions to come back to later, and go through all the questions that way in your final 90 minutes.
Yeah, you're taking the test on a computer terminal, and they give you a tutorial to show you how the terminal works. And I suggest you take that tutorial, take your time with it, because it doesn't count against your time. So you can play with that tutorial for a while and get familiar with how to move things around and whatnot. Some of the questions are quite lengthy. Well, like on the RepC, you know, the RepC is digital. They're not giving you a printed copy. It's in the software. And so you have to scan through it and whatnot. So like an Excel spreadsheet, you can move a line over so you could see, you know, make it this wide if you wanted to, instead of this wide where you can't read it all. And you could scroll down through it. But, you know, this is why I want you to be familiar with it, because you probably haven't played with it that way before. And you know, you can get frustrated, and I've had students come back and say, I was just so frustrated when I got to that part. And don't, you know, just be familiar with the contract. It'll be a huge help to you. Okay. Now, who's got some more questions? It's 6:38. Come on, guys. Appreciate it.
So is the test taken in a testing center, and
Yes.
Is that available in southern Utah?
The closest one, we got Cedar City now, don't we have, Dan?
So normally there's only 4, sorry, let me close that. Normally there's only 4 test centers in Utah. They actually just opened 2 more, but they're all up here on the northern Wasatch Front. And the closest test center to southern Utah, if you were in St. George, would be in Las Vegas. But because of COVID, they shut everything down for a month. And then when they reopened, they actually allowed a lot of their smaller test centers at colleges and things to do the real estate exam, along with their new requirements to wear a mask and stuff like that. And so if you go and register for a time to take the test, I think you might right now be able to find a spot. I think I did hear someone took the test in Cedar City, like Rick mentioned. There might also be some locations in St. George, because they're using the small test
there might
centers.
be one at Dixie University now. I mean,
yeah,
they're not hiding where they are. When you register for the exam, you can put in, they'll give you a list of the locations that are available. And then you click on a location, and you see if you can find a time that will fit your schedule. And you can show up about a half hour early. They're going to take your temperature, I think. You need a mask, and they're going to check your ID, take your photograph. They have lockers there. They're going to put all, you know, you put all your personal stuff, even your watch, in the locker, and then they kind of pat you down, and then they let you in the test. And you can't bring your own calculator in. You can't bring your phone in, obviously. You can't bring your crib notes. So, you know, they they're very friendly and they're very judicious about and serious about their business. So, but yeah, it will be at a test center. One of the problems we're having now is is finding those time slots, because in the past they have these little cubicles you take the test in, and they had lots of them, but now they're using social distancing, and so only 1 out of 3 cubicles are being used at a time. So show up the half hour early, because a lot of times there'll be somebody that's done and they're leaving, and they'll let you in a little earlier, and it just gets you in quicker and out quicker.
And you're a lot less stressed when you're there.
You're a lot less stressed. You don't want to be pacing up and down the hall waiting for your time to get in the test. You guys are going to be okay. We have a tremendous pass rate at our school. We've got a call from the Utah. Dan wouldn't tell you this, but I will. But because they restrict him what he can do. But I'm an independent contractor or whatever. But anyway, the point is, we had a call from the education director from the state of Utah. He says, "What are you doing with your students over there? Every one of them passed last month. You're the only school that had that kind of a record. And our pass rate is good." Dan has done a phenomenal job in keeping the material updated. With everything being online, a lot of schools have not worked as hard as Dan has to make sure the material is updated. You've got a great school. Okay, on a practical note, getting into the business, okay? Once again, this REPC is going to be very, very important to you. After you've taken the test, now's your time to really get familiar with the REPC. From the contents, from the context, of using it in a practical situation where you're going to be writing up an offer for a buyer. It is so important that during that critical time in your relationship with that buyer, that you are calm, you act professionally, and you know what you're doing. And, kind of like a fake it till you make it, kind of. But if your hands are shaking, if you're scratching things out, or you're erasing on the computer and redoing it, and, you're frustrated, unfortunately, the buyers you're working with may misinterpret that. What's really going on is this the first 1 or 2 or 3 you filled out, and you're scared to death. Okay, well, they may interpret that as there's something wrong with the house, and Megan hasn't told me. Irma hasn't told me what's wrong with the house. And why are they so upset? I was excited about this house, so that could get in the way of keeping your deal together. What is it that you're not telling me? Well, this is my very first one I ever filled out, and I'm stupid, I don't know how to do it. So when you get, established in your real estate brokerage office, go to your broker or sales manager and say, do you have a real recent transaction, that I can look at the MLS submittal, which is all the information about the house in the REPC contract, and kind of, okay, if I were writing this up for a buyer that wanted to buy this house, how would these blanks be filled in? Because most of the information you put in the contract comes off the MLS submittal. That's where you get the tax ID number, the address, and a lot of information you need in order to fill that form out. And so, in fact, the MLS, if you're using that to fill out your contract, there's a lot of auto-filling. If you learn how to do that. So spend some time with the REPC so that your buyers feel confident that you know what you're doing. Okay, that's my practical tip. And also with the listing contract, which you can kind of put that one on the table for a while until, you get past the exam, because they don't give you one of those that's filled out and then ask you questions about that. It's just the real estate purchase contract. Okay, good enough? More questions? Come on, guys. I'm here for another 15 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm full of questions, so I got you. As far as the math on the test goes, will they have the formulas, or do we need to come in with that stuff memorized and be able to do the math that way?
Oh, heavens, no, they're not going to give you the formulas. Unfortunately, you know.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be 6 to 8 math questions is what I've been hearing lately. Is that kind of what you've been hearing, Dan? 6 to 8 math questions?
Yeah, that's the amount on the current outline.
Yeah, we never ask students what their exam experience was like, but sometimes little birdies fly by and whisper things. But 6 to 8 questions on math, which if you're really good at math, you're already calculating, well, I only need a 70%, so you know I could miss I could miss every math question and still be fine, you know, and that's true. But you better be really good on the rest of the information. I love the math because it's something you can be absolutely sure you're right as long as you understand the formulas. Okay. There'll probably be a cap rate question. That's usually one that's always there. Another one that's always there is calculating a sales price. It'll go something like this. It'll say a seller wants to net $50,000. His expenses of sale will be $22,500.68, okay? And he has agreed to pay a 6% commission. Now, of those, you know, what do you have to list the house for in order for them to get, you know, that $50,000 net? Well, you take the 50 grand net and then you take the expenses, which were all dollar figures. There were 2 of them and they were dollar figures. And you add that to that. But here's where agents screw up. They try to multiply that by the 6 or 7% commission and add that on. You can't do that. The only way you're going to come up with the right answer is after you have what I would call the gross net. You know, so it's really the net with the other expenses added in. But how do you add in a percentage? You know, they want to, you know, they're going to pay a 6% commission. Well, you divide by the reciprocal, which means that number that has all of those figures added into it represents what of the whole? Well, the whole is 100%. So if it's 6% commission, that other number ought to represent 94% of the whole. So you divide that number by 0.94 and it gives you the list price that will net that person $50,000. We have several different math courses. You know, if you are a math phobic, I had a young lady take the test one time. I mean, this is really embarrassing. And I told her, well, the math is no big deal. You know, you'll be fine. And I worked with her quite a bit on helping her with the ones I knew that, you know, types of questions I knew she'd see. But she came out of that exam and she passed, but she called me and she says, Rick, you lied to me. And I says, well, ma'am, I would never lie to you. What do you mean? She says, every question was math. Every question was a math question. I said, that's impossible. The algorithm wouldn't let them do that. No, every question had a number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Worst example of math phobia I've ever seen. Thanks, Megan. Megan thinks my jokes are funny. I appreciate that. Either that or you're really starved for entertainment. You've been locked up with COVID for how long?
Oh yeah, you're quite entertaining though.
Okay, well, thank you for that. But yes, there'll be math, and those are some of the important ones. See, there was one that was really, really easy. Most of the math questions will be 2-steppers, okay? And what I mean by that is they'll give you some information, but you have to massage the numbers around a little bit in order to get the real numbers you need in order to do the problem. And a really good example is they give you an interest rate and they say it's this part way through the, you know, like a rent proration or maybe an interest rate proration on a note. And so you have to do that proration on the note in order to get the dollar figure you need in order to solve the math problem. So it's like a 2-stepper. There was only one question I've ever seen that's a 1-stepper. Gross rent multiplier question. Yeah, which is really simple. You know, you take your gross rents and then there was a sales price and you divided the gross rents and the sales price. It gave you the gross rent multiplier. The only 1-stepper I've ever seen on the test. Can you recall any hot math questions, Dan?
Well, they're all really entertaining, right? They're always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think
And-
the
and-
hardest one I saw come up was when they reverse the percentage on you, where you have to, the question is asking what you need to list a home for or sell a home for to get net
Right.
profit.
Yeah.
But that includes the realtor commission, and you have to like flip it on its head to calculate what the realtor commission will be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Look, any one question's not worth any more than another question. Honestly, right? So if the math question just has you totally stumped, I just mark the answer C. There's a slight preference for C, just very slight, but I mean, C should be the only answer like 25% of the time, but it's more like 32% of the time. And then just mark it for review. And then when you're at the end of the test for that section, all the math will be on the national that I've seen. Does that correlate with what your experience is, Dan?
Yeah, all the math should be in the national part.
Right. So if you're at the end of the national test and, they say you've marked these 3 for review, you pull them back up, you have time, you can work them backwards, there's no way you're going to become a math aficionado out of taking real estate school, but there are ways that you can learn enough to get to where you need to do. And once you're into business, guys, math is no big deal. It's not, okay? And you'll discover quite quickly how easy it is to calculate your commissions once you're actually doing deals, okay? Okay, all right. This is such a fabulous business, guys. It's life-changing. I mean, when I got in this business, I was a snot-nosed kid back in 1977 and 20-something, and I was driving a Volkswagen Bug. I was broke. My wife and I had one little baby boy, and I had to make this work. And I did. I threw my heart and soul into it. I won Rookie of the Year, and I did 58 transactions my first year and about 100 my second year. But that's just me. I mean, I'm more proud of the fact that I've developed 8 other Rookie of the Years since then, and hundreds of others that have received state and national, and a couple have received international awards. And you can do it too. You can do this. You can create a totally different environment, financially, socially, whatever you're looking for. Your dreams can come true by working this business. When I got in here, my whole goal and philosophy was bless lives and make money. I wanted to help people in a very meaningful way and be compensated for that because you're helping them in a meaningful way. You're hearing some of these radio commercials. I just laugh, some of the local radio personalities. Well, with all of the improvements in technology, why the hell would you want to pay? Right, they don't say why the hell, but they say, why the heck would you want to pay a real estate broker or agent all that money? Because of technology. Well, technology doesn't keep their deal together. Technology doesn't put the human element in of telling your buyer, look, you committed to a contract, now shut up and buy the house. It's people get afraid. You're working with people, okay? And oh man, Rick, we're so glad that we got that house, and you worked so hard to help us get it. And and the things that you can do with it. Do you realize that with your real estate license, for those of you that have brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews and children that are in the buying zone, in the buying age, that you can endow them? I've done, every one of my children, have gotten a house early in their life, and they've gotten it because of the dad gift letter. I've been able to gift them my 3% commission. Now, your broker might still want a little piece of that. That's fine. But do you realize you could give them 10, 20, 15? I gave one of my sons a $17,858 check to help him buy his house. Where did that money come from? It was my commission. Well, I gave it to him. So you can rebate the commission back. You can endow your children and help them get, you realize that if you taught people to buy a home and then sell it every 2 years and then buy another home and not increase their mortgage, but just keep getting better and better neighborhoods and homes because of the equity increase, with just a 10% increase in value over a 2-year period. And 10 years, that's 5 homes, they're going to pay cash for the 6th one. There's so many things you can do with this business that I don't know where you're coming from and what you've been used to, but an $8,000 commission check goes a heck of a long ways in getting you straight financially with the world. And man, when you double and triple them up in a month, it's fun, and it's, yeah, I'm talking about the money, but look at all the lives you bless. I mean, I've had young couples, and my wife got licensed, and she was so good in working with buyers. I take a buyer out, I show them 4 houses and say, buy one of these. And I say, well, no, we just want to keep looking. I said, okay, well, let's get together next Friday. And then I don't show up. It's my wife, Oh, Rick had something come up. So, that's called a TO. It's called a takeover. Because, I'll take them out 3-4 times if that, 3-4 houses, 5 houses max. If they can't buy one of those, then she jumps in. She'll show them 50 houses, But it's fun to go to those closings, have those little kids wrap their arms around her long legs and say, "Oh, Sheila, you've been so wonderful." Yeah, I mean, where people live is important. And
so she's the organic formula.
The formula? Well, the 5 Homes to Freedom is based on the fact that you can sell a home every 24 months if it was your personal residence and pay no income tax on it. So that plus the principal reduction on your loan of paying for 2 years, and also the increase in value that we're experiencing in real estate these days. And in your 6th year, you're paying cash for your 6th house. I got a whole formula on that. If you're interested, I'd be happy to. And a short little video, I can send it to you. It's rick@rickroller.com. That's rick@rickroller.com. Say, hey, send me that video about the 5 houses to freedom. And I'd be happy to, because see, these are the kind of things you want to teach your people. You want to teach your people you're selling houses to. My son, Ricky, who's a software engineer, 22 years old, got him into his condo in Traverse Mountain area. 2 years later, he sold it, made $88,000 net. 24-year-old kid, $88,000 net in his deal. And these are the kinds of things that you can put people into, folks, let alone bless your own life. I mean, you want to make more money, be more valuable to people. And I just laugh at those commercials. It's just stupid. One of my sons, who I gifted the commission to get into the house, decided, well, I'm going to sell it through Homey, Dad. I don't want to bother you. I know you're busy. I said, son, what's more important, And well, he listed it with some other company that I probably just mentioned them, but I probably shouldn't have. But anyway, sorry, Dan. But anyway, the deal fell apart. I mean, because there was, when my son bought the home, there was a partially collapsed main sewer line because of a tree root. And so I found that out, and it wasn't on the seller's disclosure, but I found it out by talking to the seller's wife, who spilled the beans. And I wouldn't let my son buy the house unless he scoped the sewer line, and he did. So he knew what he was getting into. But he took out the tree. He took it out, so he mitigated the problem and never had a problem. And he remodeled the house, and he had it under contract. And then his agent couldn't hold it together because, being responsible like he is, he disclosed the fact that there had been, or still is, partially collapsed sewer line. And the other agent that was his listing agent, because he's working for just a little bit of money, okay, couldn't hold it together because he either didn't know how or he didn't care. And I says, son, I could have held that together. I just meet with the other agent and the buyer and say, look, come on, guys, every house you're buying in this area, this is a very treed and forested area. They all have the same problem with it, every one of them, And he has no problem. He took out the tree and, you know, but anyway. Don't ever underestimate your value. You are worth it. Even protecting people against themselves, you're worth it, okay? So you're about to embark on a fantastic journey. And not only will you bless lives, make money, but you'll become a stronger, better person as well. Okay. Okay, any last questions before we wrap up tonight? Okay. Want to remind you that on Thursday nights, not through the school, but through Thursday nights, and Dan gives you a link, I do another review where we get a little, not so much into the exam, but we get into the practical steps of making it. I know that students have two main fears. Number one is passing the exam and not embarrassing myself. I understand that. We'll get you through that. But the other one is, okay, now I got the license. What the heck do I do to make money? And so we spend some time on Thursday nights, my son and I, and we talk about some things that I think are important. Some of those things that I've shared with other agents that have won the awards. So if you're interested in some of that, there's no cost, you know, and you're welcome to come. And I may hawk one of my books or something, who knows, you know, this is one of my best-selling books is called Limitless. It talks about some of the mindset that you have to have in order to make it. It's available in bookstores everywhere for about $27, but you can get one free. Come to the Thursday training and I'll give you a digital copy for free. Okay? Dan, do you have anything you want to share?
I just want to say thanks everyone for coming. If you do have any other questions, feel free to call the school or call Rick. Shared his phone number, so you can call Rick, get some more of his stories out of him if you want to. We're really grateful to have Rick here with us. He knows a lot of things and we're glad that he's willing to share those with our students here. So thanks to Rick. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll have another one of these in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And when you guys get out there and get licensed, don't be a stranger. Okay. Come to my 12-hour new agent class. You'll have a blast. Okay. And it's free. It's all free. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Rick.